Alright everybody, take a seat, take a seat. It is time for the third quarter earnings report. Now as you all know, Konami is a business, and our business is making our investors happy. COVID has absolutely ravaged the world, decreased the amount of product we can sell, and stopped all organized play. And we are still making so much money! This scalping thing, what a godsend! They bought the Speed Duel decks! We couldn't get the Speed Duel players to buy the Speed Duel decks! Oh sir, aren't you just a little bit concerned? What are you talking about? Kazuki Takahashi is in Melinda Gates' DMs. There's nothing to worry about. Sure, we've costed a pretty sizable fan base into continuing to support our product. But if new players come in from these scalpers, they might have expectations. Elaborate. They might want balance. They might want comprehensible cards. They might want playables. My god, you're right. What do we print to alienate the player base? We could print 2 unplayable structure decks back to back and take all the staples out of them? No, we did that already. That's the Ice Barrier and the Charmer structure. We could print Dark Magician at a new rarity and make nothing else in the set even remotely good? No, we did that too. We did that too. We could re-release the 2004 movie? Come on, you've got to have one good idea, everyone. Oh, we could just print more pendulums. Perfect. Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. Now, you all know that I've been the face of anti-pendulum action since Master Rule 3, but today, I will break my most sacred vow. I will play a pendulum deck. A pendulum deck. A pendulum. Ah, shit! So here's the list, and see, this is the pendulum deck for me. Most of these cards are normal monsters. Hell, even the spells have one line of text. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Now, you might have seen that every single person with a YouTube channel and a cursory knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is currently doing a progression series. Well, Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is the tool that they're using to open packs. It's got a deck builder, a card database, and a wealth of strategy articles. It's also where I post the Chalice Line monthly deck breakdowns, so give it a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. So with that, let's mess with Metalfoes. Now, when Metalfoes first came out, they were shocking. See, people's initial fear with pendulums wasn't that they were going to set up this bullshit 90 negate board through hand traps, it was that you could summon really, really powerful tribute summonable monsters like Jinzo or Super Ancient Deep-Sea King Coelacanth. Now, to prevent this, pendulum monsters either had laughable restrictions, like Cleafort's you can't summon monsters that aren't Clees, or terrible scales, like Pepe's scales that capped out at 5. Metalfoes were the first monsters with a 1 to 8 scale and no restrictions. What's more, they had the same unique effect. While in a zone, you could pop a face-up card you control to set a Metalfoes spell trap from your deck. Given that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the official game of sadomasochists everywhere, and given that 99% of playable monsters have effects that activate when they're destroyed or are in the graveyard, to players on release, these vanillas might as well have read, when you set this card in your pendulum zone, you win the game. And a lot of people did win games. As you might have expected, Metalfoes is one of the most flexible archetypes ever printed. In late 2016, for instance, Magispector Metalfoes was one of the top decks. It's kind of the precursor to how we build pendulums today. It played 4 Magispectors, 4 Odd Eyes monsters, and 2 Cleaforts, all of which were instrumental in getting the material necessary to pend 5 and end on huge combo boards. The star of this show was Gofu, which was used to make the material necessary for Adamantite, and your follow-up play, Zolkin. The next year, in early 2017, Zodiac Metalfoes was the wave, which took advantage of Baobabun's effect to summon additional copies of itself when destroyed, smoothing out hands before overlaying into the now banned MX Saber Invoker, finally going through the Zodiac motions. Lastly, in late 2017, Metalfoes were integrated into true Draco decks as a recursive beater engine and a great way to get the maximum possible number of heritage draws. Of course, these decks used Masterpiece as their win condition. There have been some other attempts at breaking Metalfoes. When they first came out, for example, people tried control strategies with Card of Demise akin to Cleafort. The Abyss Actors have some synergy, and combo-heavy decks playing Brilliant Fusion and the Yangzings were perennial considerations, but keep in mind, those three decks were far and away the archetype's biggest hits. And then, nothing. After Pendulum Magicians hit their stride, Metalfoes were cast to the ash heap of Pendulum history. Until now, Blazing Vortex has 4 new Metalfoes cards, and 2 of them are playable. And we're playing 3. Parametalfoes Melcaster has the standard Metalfoes effect. When it's destroyed, you can also add a Metalfoes from your face-up extra deck to your hand. Parametalfoes Fusion allows you to use material from your face-up extra deck for a fusion summon, and Parametalfoes Azortless is a terrible fusion monster you do not need. Basically, these cards are an apology from Konami for Master Rule 5, and I accept. Outside of that, we're playing as many cards as possible to find the best Metalfoes ever printed, Magician's Souls, which with combination is a +4. Going first, we should be able to put up Pendulum Classic 35 negates through hand traps, and going second, we should be able to chew through our opponent's board and either land an access code or simplify the board state to a point where 1 Volflame a turn wins us the game. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First, our Metalfoes. We're playing 3 copies of Volflame, 3 copies of Gold Driver, 3 copies of Silvered, and 3 copies of Steelin. After that, we've got the Effect Metalfoes, 3 of the new Parametalfoes Melcaster, and 3 of the old rare Metalfoes Bismagir. This card has the same Metalfoes effect as every other card, but can also add a Metalfoes monster from your deck to your hand during the end phase of a turn in which it was destroyed. That effect activates on destruction, so you can very easily pop this card, activate the effect, then shuffle this sucker back into the deck with Mithrilium and still resolve its effect. Just don't forget it like Skarm. Next, we've got Magician's Souls, a fantastic card that unfortunately costs $90. You can send 2 spell traps from your hand or field to the graveyard and draw that many cards. If you're sending combinations, you're winning the game. Because Magician's Souls is such a high-rolled inclusion, we're also playing 3 Magical Abductor. People remember this card because it adds pendulum cards from your deck to your hand, but did you know this card has a monster effect as well? Each time a spell card is activated, you get to put 1 spell counter on the card, and despite gaining 100 attack for each spell counter, the reason we're playing it is because you can remove 3 counters to add a level 1 spellcaster from your deck to your hand. After that are our targets to send from Magician's Souls. Conveniently, a Mythical Beast Jackal King and an Endymion fit the bill. Finally, we're playing Cleafort Scout and Cleafort Monolith. This was standard in Metalfoes lists when they were first being propagated, but has since fallen out of favor in Pendulum generally. Wasting 2 zones on a Cyber Dragon Infinity isn't ideal. I just want to see how it works. Finally, we're on 2 copies of Painful Decision for spells, 1 copy of Parametalfoes Fusion, 1 copy of Metalfoes Fusion, 3 Summoner Art, no once per turn on this card by the way, an Upstart Goblin, a full Metalfoes Fusion, and an Emergency Teleport. For traps, we're only on the combinations. In the extra deck, we're on Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. We'll be summoning this by going into Absolute via something like a Volflame and a Melcaster. We're on Azortless, which is just a wall of text that you don't need to worry about. You are almost never summoning this card. All you need to know is if you have 2 cards in your face-up extra deck, it's a removal spell. 2 Metalfoes Mithrilium really turns on a significant portion of the deck. This card allows you to target 2 Metalfoes cards in the graveyard and 1 on the field, shuffle the cards in the graveyard back so you can keep activating Metalfoes effects, and bounce the card on the field. You can bounce your own cards, so if you set a Cleafort Scout, add a Monolith, and then put the Scout back into the hand, you don't have to worry about its restriction. Next is Full Metalfoes Alcahest. This is Thousand Eyes Restrict, and really shocking to see this card being played again. We're on a copy of Absolute Dragon. This is just material to get into Vortex, CDI and Little CDI, Access Code Talker, Apollosa, Nightmare Unicorn to beef up the Access Code Talker admittedly, Selene, critical to most of your combos, IP Masquerena, a little bit of insurance against Lightning Storm, and Cross Sheep. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Magistus, and I have no idea what this deck does. Oh, it's something about equipping, I think? You can see that our hand is laughably bad. We've drawn the 1 of Monolith, the 1 of Jackal King, and both halves of the 2 of combination. We also drew Magician Souls, so we'll be fine. We'll special summon it, and thank God we're playing the Endymion. We're going to activate the effect, draw 2 cards, Bismugear, Summoner's Art, oh, be still my heart. We'll trigger both combinations, and now we have scales for days. Let's get setting. We're going to set a Jackal King, and I'm doing this combo just a little bit differently than normal because we already have Jackal King in rotation. We're going to normal summon a copy of Silvered, and then link summon a Cross Sheep, fusing into a Mithrilium to trigger the Cross Sheep's effect and bring back souls. We'll activate Melcaster so our Selene shows up with 4 counters instead of 3. We'll remove 3 of them to bring back the Endymion while we still have a counter on board, then activate the effect of the Melcaster to pop the Volflame and set a copy of full. We will Pendulum summon 2 cards here, and then activate Mithrilium's effect, shuffling 2 cards back to pop this copy of Melcaster back to hand. When we activate it again, our Jackal King gets counters, so we can activate the effect of Melcaster, triggering the effect of Bismugear before we overlay for an Absolute and an Apollousa. We'll make a Vortex and pass turn. Here we have access to an Omni Negate, 3 Monster Negates, and Alcahest. Our opponent will lead with a Hat Trigger into an Artemis, into a Magistius Vercendrilion. They'll chain block with the effect of Artemis, but I think we still negate it. I'm not exactly sure. Next, they'll activate Invocation. We will negate it with Vortex Dragon, but it's activate once per turn, not use, so they do get to go for it again. We're going to respond with a copy of Full Metalfoes Fusion, so when they make their fusion card, we have removal for it. We'll trigger the effect of our Mithrilium. We'll negate the effect of their monster in hand with Apollousa, and I realize maybe that was not a good idea. We probably should have saved it. They'll go for Saint in response to Alcahest, but we still have a monster negate. We'll use it to destroy the Saint. They will special summon a copy of Crowley and get over our copy of Jackal King, but that is it, thank God. One more piece of interaction, and we might have actually lost. Okay, we'll activate combination here, then activate the effect of Melcaster targeting the combination to set a copy of Para. Combination will trigger, and we'll get ourselves a copy of Gold Driver. We'll set the Bismugear, and then activate the effect of Bismugear, popping the Melcaster, and then setting the Gold Driver as well. We'll Pendulum summon just the Melcaster before firing off a fusion to go into an Azortless, triggering the effect of Azortless to remove our opponent's last remaining monster, drawing a card, activating Painful Decision, and what do you know, we haven't normaled. We'll go to the battle phase and get in for well over lethal. Our second match is meant to showcase that while this deck excels at building boards that resist almost every piece of blind second interaction, sometimes it's the building portion of that process that's the problem. We're going to lead with a copy of Summoner's Art. We've already got everything we could ever ask for, until we see the Droll. Well, I just hope we aren't dead. Our opponent's going to lead with the Cyber Dragon Core, getting a copy of Repair Plan to hand, and oh, yeah, looks like we are dead. They're going to go for a Machine Duplication, go into Nova, make Almirage, trigger Nova, bring back the Cyber Dragon they just detached before making Infinity, make a Mega Fleet, and overload into Rampage. Okay, well, we have learned a valuable lesson today, I think. So it's time for Game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing Prank Kids, and if you disagree with Prank Kids being tier 1, may I remind you it took 2 of the top 4 slots in the most recent extravaganza. Le 1 event a month face. We're going first, and our hand is killer. We're going to lead with a copy of Magical Abductor, then set a Magical Abductor. Does not happen often before setting a Melcaster, popping our Abductor, and getting a copy of Combination. We will set the remaining combination, summon a Magician Souls, draw 2 cards, and add 2 cards from our deck to our hand. Or just the back half of that. God, that's killer. Okay, well, that's a really well-timed Ash, but we still should be able to make something happen. We'll set Volflame. We're going to activate the effect of Magical Abductor, so we have follow-up plays for next turn at least. We'll make a Cross Sheep, then Volflame, targeting the Melcaster so we can set a copy of Para. We're going to set Gold Driver, then Pendulum summon 2, an Abductor, and the Melcaster, before popping the Volflame to get a full. We'll activate Para, sending this copy of Volflame to the graveyard so we can trigger the effect of Cross Sheep off the Mithrilium. We'll activate the effect of the Mithrilium, putting back this copy of Gold Driver, then activate the Gold Driver so we can once again pop the Mithrilium and bring back this 7 from our graveyard. From here, we can overlay for an Absolute Dragon, make an Apollousa, and end on a Vortex. That's okay, given the circumstances. Our opponent's working with 4 cards, plus the one they drew off the top. They'll go for a Pandemonium, and thank God we made Vortex. Wow. They're going to normal summon a copy of Lampseas and activate its effect, but this Apollousa should make quick work of that. They're unfortunately going to have to pass their turn. We should be able to easily OTK from here. We'll activate Combination. Afterwards, we'll activate the effect of Magician Souls, summoning it from our hand, and then setting a Volflame as well. We'll activate Gold Driver, popping the Volflame in order to set a second combo. We'll activate Souls. They have another Ash, but this time we have an Apollousa. We'll draw a couple of cards, then trigger 2 copies of Combination in order to add from our deck deck to our hand 2 Metalfoes monsters. After that, we're going to set a Bismugear and then Pendulum Summon as many as we can. That's going to be 3, and afterwards we can make a Masquerena, normal summon a Silvered, make a Unicorn, and make an access code talker for 4. When's the last time you saw a 6300 attack access code? We'll get in for well over lethal. So it's time for game 2, and you can see that my opponent has made a rookie mistake, citing Called by the Grave when I don't play any hand traps. Fool! They're going to lead with a copy of Dropsies. They'll make a Meow Meow and then trigger the effect of Dropsies in order to gain 1,000 life and make a Roxy's from deck. From here, they're going to make a Doodle Doe. They'll trigger it and the effect of Roxy's in order to draw a card, and evenly matched as well. They must have thought that they were going second. They'll go for a Pandemonium for a Rocket Ride, then trigger the effect of Fancies and Lampsies and Rocket Ride, chain blocking, as if we would actually ash this or anything. They'll get a couple of monsters from their deck before making a Bow Wow Bark and a Roarin' Roaster. Oh god, that is really good against me. Okay, they'll trigger Doodle Doe in order to add a bunch of cards back to hand, then set to pass. Well, we draw for turn and glued to my grip. God dang it. Okay, we'll Silvered, targeting this copy of Endymion in order to set a combination. Next, we'll activate Summoner's Art. It gets ashed, which is great news because now we can Magician's Souls. They're going to Bow Wow Bark here, and I guess they could Shotgun to clear my board, but they elect not to. We'll go for Souls and then activate the effect of combination. We're going to normal summon an Abductor, then fire off a Painful Decision. We get a counter, we set a Volflame, and now the Pandemonium is coming down. Here's the Battle Butler. Okay, they'll activate, oh god, everything. Dropsies and Lampsies and Fancies. I'm taking damage, they're gaining life points, and unfortunately monsters are appearing on their sides of the field. We will add a copy of Magician Souls from our deck to our hand before making IP Masquerena and Pendulum Summoning as many as we can. We will give them no quarter and go immediately into access code before they can pop my field, and oh, they found a use for the Called anyway. I was so excited to use this access code that can't be destroyed by card effects, but by banishing the IP Masquerena, I don't have anything to banish. We'll go for a Volflame and set a copy of Para. We'll activate Para. We get to go into a Mithrilium here. We can Mithrilium in order to shuffle back the Rip-Roaring Roaster, but that is more than enough material on their side of the field. I have nothing that interacts with them on their turn, so they're going to be able to pop off. They're going to go for a Lampsies, for a Dropsies, for a Doodle Doe, trigger the effect of the Doodle Doe and the Dropsies. They'll gain 1,000 life points, go into a Roxy's, add a copy of Pandemonium, go into Unicorn, and that can only mean one thing, an access code of their own. That's miserable. So they'll first destroy the Mithrilium in order to prevent the float from actually meaning something. Second, they will destroy my Scale to prevent me from coming back the next turn. And third, they will normal summon a Lampsies and destroy my last remaining attack position monster? I think they miscounted there. Well, not like it matters. I don't know what I could do with this. Painful Decision is something. We're going to activate it in order to add a copy of Steel into hand. They will Pandemonium, and what do you know? They have just the material for the Battle Butler. Ah, come on. I go to 300 off this Lampsies, too. They're going to put 4 monsters on their side of the field. My Kingdom for a Raigeki, but it is not to be. I'll set, normal summon, and concede. So it's time for that all-important Game 3, and well, this is just about the best an opening hand can look from us, and pretty good for our opponent as well. Prankids plus Forbidden Droplet is lights out against a lot of decks. Let's see if we can resist it. We're going to go for a Magical Abductor, then set a couple of Metalfoes. We'll activate Volflame's effect, popping this Silvered, so we can set a copy of Combination, then activating Melcaster and Magical Abductor's effect to get ourselves a copy of Souls. We'll activate Melcaster's effect in order to pop the Volflame. We'll set a second copy of Combination, then activate the effect of Magician Souls to summon it, and then draw 4 cards. Thank God it finally resolved. Oh my god, those are good ones. We're going to add 2 cards from our deck to our hand. Then next we're going to go into a Cross Sheep. We'll activate Bismugear, activate Bismugear's effect, popping this copy of Melcaster, then activating Melcaster's effect to get a Metalfoe back to hand. We'll go for Fusion to make a Mithrilium, then activate Cross Sheep's effect to bring back this copy of Magician Souls, and fire off Summoner's Art so we don't have to set scales, so our Celine will have 3. With those 3 spell counters, we're going to bring back this copy of Jackal King, and then we're going to set a Scout for the first time today. We'll activate Scout's effect and get the Monolith. Thank God it wasn't in my opener. Then we'll activate Mithrilium in order to put the Scout back into our hand. We'll make Apollosa, set a 1 scale, and guess what, buddy? It is time for a 4 Pendulum Summon! Wow, that feels good. We'll go from Nova into Infinity, followed up with an Absolute Dragon, which we pop with our Gold Driver, setting a full, and if we had planned this just a little tiny bit better, we could have also resolved the effect of the Bismugear and gotten consistent access to our copy of Alcahest. Our opponent's going to lead with a Pankratops. They will walk over our Appaloosa, which is unfortunate. We will try to negate the effect of their Prankid in the graveyard, to which they respond with a Forbidden Droplet, going Hellbent and discarding their entire hand. We have one more trick up our sleeve. We're going to go for a full Metalfoes fusion. They pop our Pendulum monster, and oh my god, we get to resolve the effect. We'll pop their Prankid, and we win! We win! I can't believe it, we win! We're gonna take their monster with the Infinity, we'll pop our own Azortless, and then afterwards we'll Pendulum Summon it right back. We're gonna go for Gold Driver's Effect, popping this Bismugear. Now that there's a monster in our face-up extra deck, we can activate the effect of Bismugear and fire off the Fusion, using the card in our hand to turn into Mithrilium. We'll activate Mithrilium to put this Gold Driver back in our hand, and buddy, we have not yet normal summoned to the battle phase, and that's an easy, clean Game 3 victory. So we're back with the deck, and I have got to say, I am impressed. It's unclear if Prank Kid is, like, real or just the product of this once-a-month tournament structure we're dealing with, but either way, I'm feeling good. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, this list is scary consistent. That's what you get when you're playing 26 cards that all do the same thing, of course, but it's nice to be able to reliably find everything you need every game. 2, the boards this deck sets up are powerful in ways that resist pretty much every going second tool. If you do your combos right, unlike me, you can end on monsters that resist destruction, defense, and even monsters that tag out with full Metalfoes after a successful droplet. And 3, it's a perfect COVID deck. It rewards the kind of understanding you can only get from solitaring the deck a million times, and we've all got a lot of free time on our hands these days. And the cons. 1, it lives or dies based on Magician Souls. That's generally fine, you've got a lot of ways to see it, but it kind of sucks to stare at a hand of 4 foes and think, what the hell am I gonna do with this? 2, it's not playing any hand traps. I mean, this isn't new for Pendulum decks. You have to be playing as much of your engine as possible, so you always have scales, but it does mean you're losing a lot of game ones to Dragon Link. And 3, it's hard. I don't know how all these Pendulum players do it. You gotta be thinking 8 steps ahead, and I have trouble thinking in the present. All in all, it's a refreshing take on a confusing mechanic, and I hope it pans out. So that's that. As always, thanks to my patrons AJBYGO, Alex Perea, BB Poison, Blue Fanfiction Inc., Caleb Jasa, Chibi Gohan, Connor Kid, Crispy, Dimsum05, Dubs Rewatcher, Frosty, Jacksack PhD, King Magic Ruler, Nightmari, Kylie Denton, Major Rusty, Matt, Mike Carlotti, Phoenix Strix, Rocky Hernandez, Rose Lapine, Sarah Routledge, Seeker, Space Dandy 1993, Adam Trevino, Adrian Bra, Amit Elefandi, Alex Dominguez, Alfred Hendricks, Amaranta V, Andrew Benson, Andrew Ferruia, Andrew Horseman, Apex TCG, Ballin Stalin, Based Madoka, Billy Williams, Blake Root, Blair, Brandon Keys, Candide, Captain Breadbeard, Chad Bortz, Chad Weatherington, Chorps Away, CJ Alex, Cole Shulian, Control for the Win, Crystal Red Fox, Cubic is the best deck. I don't know about that. Daffy Deathclock, Dan the Man Hoban, Danny Guadalupe, Darcy Tevz, Dive Missile, Dogma, Dominic Chris, Doug Parslow, Dr. Batman, Dying Eyes, Distrin, Emperor Stove, Ernesto Ibarra, Fighting Fang Wong, Fisker Whiskers, FUTR, Game of Wolf, Gavin K, Hank Cheesecake, Helios the Helios, Haroof, How to Lose, Josemina, Isaac Jackson, Jane Linya, Jason Leonard, Jay Gordon, Jeff Leonard, Jonathan Wallets, Jupe, Jose Luis Cortez, Joy Orjan, Juliet Julian, Callie, Corey Hess, Gurakaze, Lake Bayer, Lawrence, Lightsworn Gorgon, Lottie, Lovro Plesse, Lucas Angles, Lucas Girdis, Lucas Arito Hansen, Major Duncan, Malleus, Matthew Taylor, Max, Meadow Edits, Mezzo Emrys, Michael Oskvarik, Miles Edgelord, Mimes Are Creepy, Miska Aronin, Miyuna Arashi, Nicholas Alexander, Nick Extreme 99, Niru Soup, Nitro Skull, Nix Dolores, No Penguin, Omase, One Glad Morning, Ousterin, Papa Dragonite, Par 2, Picnic Blasted, Precise Spike 13, Pro FP2, Sam Pinney, Sam Soon, Sapphic Ashley, Scrafted, Sean Deal, Sean Flynn, Sendoria, Standards Objective, Swinkles, Tate Rosencutter, The Carl Moxley, The Saucy Pickle, This Machine 237, Thought Auditor, TJ Steakhouse, Yuri's Best, Oli Bjarki Aust Fioro, and Yukie. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing. And if you want to be part of the process, follow me on Twitch as well. See you next time.